Good afternoon, hello and welcome. You're watching Your Stocks. I'm Samira Abdi. With me is Nigel D'Souza for the market. The key indices are just a little bit subdued at the moment. So 85.20 odd is where the Nifty is holding at the moment. It's a cut of nearly 0.3%. But the mid-cap index, the broader market as we say, is a little bit more buoyant. So the mid-cap index itself is up about 0.5%. Hi Nigel.
Hi Samira, that's right. In fact, the mid-cap index is outperforming stocks like Roongta. They're up another 6% in today's trade. Something like a United Breweries as well at around that 130 odd. There seems to be a big trade that came in there, so that stock took off from there. It's currently holding with a gain of around 6%. Remember, the Nifty is still down around 30 points, but these stocks are doing quite well. A couple of banks, Karnataka Bank, Syndicate Bank, they should come up for you. Both of them are up between around 4 to around 6%, and even pull in something like an Allahabad Bank. That stock as well has taken off. It's up close to around 3.5%. Few other winners include the likes of Exide as well as Tata Communications. Both those stocks are buzzing around, and the new entrant, India Bulls Housing as well, that stock is gaining close to around 3%. That's the new entrant in the F&O space. India Bulls Housing is the stock I'm talking about. We've got HCL Tech from the Nifty space that has seen some selling pressure just in the last few minutes. But there are some losers, and for sure the news that's flashing for you on your screen with regard to that excise duty hike on petrol as well as diesel. So HPCL, BPCL as well as IOC, all of them are seeing selling pressure. Add to it one of the stocks that have been doing very well in the last few days, Asian Paints. That stock is coming for some profit booking. Even Berger Paints is seeing some profit booking at this point of time, and something like a TVS Motors as well. The stock was fairly excited yesterday post its auto sales numbers. Today, in fact, that stock is under some pressure. It's moving towards the low point of the day.
Alright, so let's get started then. In a bit, we'll of course be joined by a big banker. Arundhati Bhattacharya will be joining us to take us through what she makes of the RBI's move today, or rather status quo today. But before that, we have two experts also joining in to answer our queries on Your Stocks. Naresh Mirani joins in to answer all the stock queries, and we have Harsh Roongta who will be answering all the personal finance queries today. So I think we have a caller already on the line with us. Do we? Okay, I'm not certain that we do, but before that, Naresh, okay, we have one. Prashant Malikar calls in from Mathura with a query on an auto stock, Tata Motors. Prashant, hi, what's your question?
Hi, I want to know whether I can make some fresh buying in Tata Motors or its DVR.
Okay, and any particular reason you have chosen this stock?
I'm hearing some good news about their future perspective with respect to their, JLR has been doing well and all that. Yeah.
All right, Naresh, what's your take on Tata Motors or the Tata Motors DVR? Do you think it would warrant buying for an investor to make a bet at the moment?
So if you look at Tata Motors technically, for the last few months it has been very stagnant, but at current levels around closer to 510 to 530 zones, it is a good risk reward entry point. I'm looking towards an upside towards 580 to 600 over the short to medium term. So in dips to 520, 530, and similarly at the same zones, one can look into Tata Motors DVR also. But it may not be a quick rally from current levels, but it is a good bet at current prices with a risk reward in favor for the investor.
All right, do hold on to those thoughts, gentlemen. We need to interrupt Your Stocks for just a moment. Arundhati Bhattacharya, the chairman of SBI, is joining in with us, and also with us is Ekta Batra, who's going to take us through this interaction. Ekta.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Bhattacharya, for joining in. First, wanted your assessment on the RBI policy today.
I think the tone is very dovish. I'm quite hopeful, and the governor has left the window open for action outside the policy also. Further, I think, if you look at the fan charts that have been put out, their earlier range in June 14 was between 8 and 11%. Currently, they are showing a range of 4.2 to 6. So obviously, even in their estimation, the disinflationary trends are quite well entrenched. We've also been seeing how the RBI rates, how they have approximated the prices of crude. And we have seen that whenever crude price comes down, the rates also do come down. So overall, I think we are looking at sometime early next year with the rate cycle turning.
Okay. When, in your sense, do you think the first rate cut could come? There were some who were off the camp that it could be as early as Feb. You do expect it to be early next year, but could it possibly be delayed to even post the budget? Your sense on how much and by when could be the first rate cut?
You are quite right. Post-budget is probably the best time that we are looking at. And if he has put 6%, as the target for March, then post-budget seems to be the right time.
Okay, but in your sense, Mrs. Bhattacharya, do you think the quantum of the rate cuts could possibly be restricted in 2015? Because one of the things that were mentioned in the press conference is that the government too has accepted or will possibly accept that 4% CPI or inflation target, which will go beyond Jan 2016. So in order to actually focus your energy on that, do you think that the rate cuts would be restricted in 2015?
I don't really know at this point of time, but I think, he has mentioned that there will be a series of rate cuts. So to that extent, how much exactly will go down during the next year is difficult at this point to talk about. But I do believe that, things will not be as difficult as it seems to be right now. And therefore, looking at everything, I would think that, it would not be restricted to a very small number. Because even today, if you look at the way the CP markets are operating, they are already well below base rates. And therefore, I think the expectation is that when he does come in, he should come in with at least 50 basis points now.
Okay. What is credit growth looking like right now for SBI as well as for the industry as a whole? And when do you think there would be some amount of lending rate cuts which could come through?
See, credit growth is picking up. It is better than what it was the last time I spoke to you all. And hopefully last quarter it will resume speed. Regarding lending rate cuts, I think it will be sometime towards the end of the first quarter. Again, difficult for me to say because we still haven't had an ALCO and we need to talk about it. So I'm really not telling you anything regarding my own bank. But overall for the industry, I think the feeling is that the deposit rates need to come down. As you know, we led with a deposit rate cut a while back, and now a few of the bigger banks, I think HDFC cut its rates about 3 weeks back. So some of the bigger banks are now beginning to cut on the deposit rates. As and when that gets entrenched and the deposit rates, trend downwards, you can also see some kind of resultant cuts in the base rates. However, having said that, probably we could see compression of spreads on various kinds of lendings and not necessarily straight away a base rate cut. So we have to watch out for whatever is happening. In respect of the spreads, in fact, a number of banks have reduced spreads on various types of products. So though you have not noticed a base rate cut, actually speaking, I think lending has become a little cheaper.
Okay. Could you give us a sense for 2015 then, ma'am? What would credit growth possibly look like in terms of growth as compared to this year?
I think credit growth in 2015 will definitely be better, especially the latter half of 2015, by which time you would definitely be able to see projects coming online. As you can see, once the coal auctions go, there will be some amount of money that will be taken out there. In respect of the telecom spectrum auction, again, some amount of money will definitely be used. So 2015, the credit growth will definitely be better than what we have seen in 2014.
Okay. One of the things, Mrs. Bhattacharya, that was announced during the RBI press conference today as opposed to what was out in the PDF was basically the 525 restructuring will possibly be extended to existing projects as opposed to new projects. We've already spoken to Mr. Pradeep Kumar of SBI on this, but I wanted your view on this as well as the possibility of hiking equity participation of banks in restructured projects to beyond 10% that is the current limit.
Both of these are very positive for banks, and I believe both will be very good, because I really don't understand why a project, if it is new, should be given the advantage of repaying over a longer period of time, whereas the existing projects should not be given the same facility. They should be on the same level platform. So to that extent, it should be good for the banks. They would be able to refinance many of the loans where projects are working and cash flows are seen. In respect of converting debt to equity, this is also required in respect of those projects where we are sure of the viability and where the banks can actually have a piece of the upside when the projects actually do turn around. Also, this will improve viability, because if you have too much of debt and not enough equity, then it creates leverage and it creates pressure for the servicing of the debt, which sometimes impact the viability of the project. So both of these things are very positive for banks.
Okay. Lastly, Mrs. Bhattacharya, since we have you with us, I'm going to ask you about the recapitalization plan by the government with regards to PSU banks. Have you heard anything in terms of the plans of the Finance Ministry, as well as any sort of progress in terms of a possible merger between the subsidiary banks and SBI?
Now, regarding the subsidiary banks and SBI, we are still working on it. We have not yet gone to the government with anything. Regarding capitalization, I know as much as you, and that is from the media itself. We've been seeing reports where Finance Ministry and the Finance Minister himself has said that they are looking at diluting their stake to 52%, and we are expecting that some action will happen on that. Once that is through and we get that approval, we'll be looking at ways and means as to how to raise equity.
All right, Mrs. Bhattacharya, we leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining in and talking to us. So that's the word coming in from SBI, that maybe there could be an improvement in credit growth come 2015.
All right, so good tidings for the coming year. Thanks very much, Ekta, for taking us through that. We'll take a very quick break. We'll come back in a bit. On the other side, we'll get back to your stocks and we'll get our experts in, Harsh Roongta as well as Nuresh Mirani. Do stay with us. Back in just a bit. Hi, welcome back. You're with your stocks. Before we get to our experts, here's a CNBC TV 18 exclusive. The lines are flashing for you. We understand from sources the government is mulling a cut in GAIL's marketing margins by 75% in a bid to make gas pooling viable. Nayantara Rai joins us with more on that exclusive story. Nayantara?
Yeah, hi, Samara. So what I'm picking up from my sources is that one of the considerations on the table to make gas pooling more viable and also help the stranded power plants is to cut GAIL's marketing margin by 75%. In fact, the Power Ministry is also seeking that there should be no double charge of marketing margin once the gas is pooled. So, like one time when the ONGC, let's say, produces the gas, then when it's put into the gas pool, there should be no double incidence of the marketing margin. What I'm also understanding from my sources is that another proposal on the table, and that has been discussed between the Power Minister and Oil Minister, is to cut the tariff, the pipeline tariff, by about 50%. It's a move that could impact companies again like GAIL and GSPL. The idea also is not to just make gas pooling more viable, but also the feeling is that right now you have pipelines whose full capacity is not being utilized. So a cut could also help in the utilization of the pipeline capacity. The PNGRB, which is the Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Body, its concurrence is going to be needed as far as the cut in tariffs and the marketing margin goes. But this is on the table, and last week we did see a power pact meeting between Piyush Goyal and Dharmendra Pradhan on gas pooling, all of this to try and revive almost 24,000 megawatts of power that is stranded on the lack of gas.
All right, Nayantara, thanks very much for joining in with that news. Of course, a bit of a setback coming in for GAIL, and you can see that in the stock reaction. But we'll get in more reaction to this story. For now, we have a query that we need to answer. Abhishek has called in. Okay, I think we don't have the caller with us. Let's take a break. We'll come back with our experts and more callers in a bit.
Welcome back. The Nifty is holding with a cut of around 20 points odd, but let's get straight to our first caller, in fact, who's standing by. Nikunj Kumar calls us from Ranchi, and he has a personal finance query. Hi, Nikunj.
Hi.
Hi, how can we help you?
Yes, I am 28 years old.
Okay.
And I am an engineer in Steel Authority of India Limited.
Superb.
I have a total earning of around rupees 40,000 per month, and that is after deducting PF and all.
Okay.
And my regular expenses per month is almost at most 10,000 rupees. And my total savings are around 6 lakhs in savings account and 2 lakhs in fixed deposit sector.
All right.
And I have adequate insurance cover.
Right.
I'm single, unmarried. My aim is to buy a house worth rupees 60 lakhs.
Okay.
And I want to buy it using bank loan. So, can I do it?
Superb. Let's help you out, Nikunj. Harsh, what do you think? I think he's got things pretty much sorted in his brain, but he wants to buy that house of 60 lakhs odd. How can you help him?
So I think Nikunj, good. You really planning for this. I think that's the best part. The key here is with your income of roughly 5 lakhs, you need to make sure that the house that you want to buy is within your budget. So typically on a 5 lakh income, you would be eligible for a loan of about 20 lakhs, which would be on a house that whose agreement value would need to be at least 23-24 lakhs with other costs, etc. You have the down payment, but the house cost, therefore the agreement value cannot be more than 24-25. It really is going to be difficult for you to look at this house of 60 lakhs. The big thing for you is that I think you saving a lot of money. I think you should start investing it, and maybe if it is possible, maybe postpone the house purchase, invest this. If you can postpone it by 4-5 years, then this 30,000 rupees you could invest in a systematic basis in a balanced fund, and that could form the corpus of a good down payment, and that will enable you to buy a much bigger or a more expensive house, say 5 years down the line. Or if you want to buy now, you would have to be you'll have to buy a relatively more modest house.
All right, unfortunately that's about all the time that we have on the show this afternoon. Nuresh and Harsh, thanks very much, and apologies we couldn't spend much time with you, but we need to wrap up on your stocks. Do stay tuned. Closing bell will be with you in just a bit.